Okay, then I start. First of all, thank you very much for coming in my conference. It will talk, of course, about NoCode and business process. I will try to not break everything. And it will last approximately 30 minutes. Then we will have question and answers. So let's start. You all know what is business process or not? Yes, everybody? You can say no. Yeah, everybody yes? Okay. No? Okay, fine. So this is a business process. So you have different steps, and at each step you can take different decisions to go to the next step. So the subject of this conference is how associating no-code and business process will give you superpowers. I hope so. So here's the menu. After a brief introduction, I will talk about how we build applications using no-code for enterprise. Then I will explain what is a business process and how we usually do it in enterprises right now. And then I will explain how the association of no-code and business process, how is it useful for the enterprise and your customers. And finally, I will give you some outcomes of this association of no-code and business process with my own customers. Okay, so first I'm David Grossi. I'm the founder and CEO of Pickaform. I've been working more than 20 years in IT projects, and mostly in organization and business process. Historically, I was mostly an IBM consultant, and I was working with very complex products to do business process management. I also worked 6 years in the computer game industry. I was elected IBM champion in 2019 for my work on business process. So this is really my subject. And I developed more than 150 applications over the years, and mostly with business process integrated. The small island on the top right is because I'm coming from Reunion Island, which is woo! Okay, we have another one in the room. It's a small island in the Indian Ocean, French island. Okay, my mojo is and has always been KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, and this is very important because it drove all my career. So in my life, working with IBM products, very complex IBM products, I was always like this. It should be simple, but in reality it was always very complex. So I've tried hard to make business process management more simple than it was. This led me to create this simple no-code solution called Pickaform to build business apps which integrate business process. Okay, so now I will talk about how we build enterprise application with no-code. First of all, with no-code you can do a lot of things. You know that already, I think. So you can do marketing, business intelligence, workflow automation, mobile application. I will not list everything here, but for now I will focus on how we build enterprise applications with no-code. So the focus will be given to enterprise applications. As you probably know, it's not because it's no-code that it means it's simple. When you talk about no-code, you have a scale of complexity. On the left, you have no-code for business users, which means business users, they don't have technical skills. And on the right, you have no-code for tech users, and which require a lot of tech skills. Yeah, it's a bit cliche, my slide, I know, but it's maybe not so far from reality. When you are building an enterprise application with no-code, you have to take into account many parameters, and one of these parameters is if you will use a stack of simple no-code tools or a more integrated tool. Example of stack, very often used, Airtable plus Softar plus Make plus anything you want. Some other no-code are more integrated. There are advantages and inconvenience to use a stack of simple tools. For example, the advantages are it's often easier, more flexible, and you have less vendor lock-in when you use a stack of simple tools. But on the other hand, it's more maintenance, you have more points of failure, more dependencies, and of course, more subscriptions. I won't debate here if it's good or not good. It's probably a matter of taste, because I've seen some no-coders who say, I prefer more simple tools, some others that say, I prefer more integrated solutions. But what is for sure is that with the kind of company I was working with, which are bigger companies, they always prefer more integration and less components. So you have to keep in mind that if you want to use low-code to address bigger companies, it's always better to have more integrated solution, in my experience. Another parameter is the trust level. By trust level, I mean, where is my data? This is a question you will have when you will use no-code to address bigger companies. So the lowest level of trust is, of course, public cloud. The best level of trust is on-premise or self-hosted solutions. And in between, you have private cloud. For RGPD and a lot of regulation reasons, some French companies and European companies often prefer to use European cloud hosted solutions. I have some customers that say, I'm sorry if there is American people in this room, but they say, I don't want my data hosted on an American provider. So you can have this kind of scenario. Okay, so when you are building an enterprise for an application for enterprise with no code, you have the scenario where you have to build a simple application on the left, and you have the scenario where you have to build a complex application. When you have to build a simple application with simple forms, limited features, and mostly for business users, you generally can use full no-code features, full no-code solutions. When you're dealing with complex applications with rich forms, rich features, and more for tech users, it's difficult to use no-code tools, for now at least. So you always have to go to low-code or code. So the question is, would it be interesting to have something just in between, where the solution is no-code, full no-code, simple enough for business users, but flexible enough to push on the right and to build complex applications? Okay, so considering all that I've said just before, the result is that the current market of no-code is mainly, I said mainly and not only, there are always counter-examples, but it's mainly used for small business solutions, mobile apps, and MVPs. I hardly ever see big and complex solutions in bigger companies in full no-code. So could we change that? That's where I'm talking about business process management. First of all, maybe it's a little biased because I've done this all my career, but I think business process is absolutely everywhere. When you follow a lead, it's a business process. When you have a recruitment, it's a business process. When you have a client claim to track, it's a business process. I won't list everything here. It's just a few examples, but there are business processes everywhere in small companies or big companies. So it's really a key feature to have. You can find business process in small companies, they need it, but when you address bigger companies, it's really a key feature to address bigger companies. Okay, you have different kind of business process. So on the left, we have a very simple process with 4 steps. And on the right, you have something that I wouldn't like to work with, but it probably exists somewhere. The standard way to do business process in the industry is using a standard which is called BPMN, for Business Process Model and Notation. BPMN is very, very powerful. And the advantage of using BPMN is that it covers absolutely every possible use case in the business process management. And that's the way I've been doing business process for more than 20 years, actually. I was doing this standard using complex tools. The problem with BPMN standard is that not everybody speaks naturally BPMN. It's a skill. You have to learn it. There is a lot of vocabulary, and the tools which are BPMN compliant, they are often a bit complex tools. Not always, but a bit complex tools. And the reality is that 95% of the process you meet in enterprises, they have less than 7 steps. I've seen a study that say that, and actually that's what I really meet at my customers. I would even say less than 5 steps, probably. But okay, so this stat, what it says that most of the time you don't necessarily need to use a big tool and BPMN standard. And you can still cover a lot of cases in business processes. I've seen also scenarios where a customer told me, oh yes, we have a lot of business process in our companies. And I told them, okay, show me your business process. And then he showed me a field, and he changed the status. Open, in progress, analysis, solved, cancelled. So they just changed the status of a field. You can do that, but it's not really what we call business process management. The other way, which is very trendy, is using Kanban boards. Kanban boards, they are everywhere right now. And Kanban boards, it's very efficient for straightforward process, when you can move forward or can move backward. But if you have a process with branching and conditions, Kanban is not enough. I have an example of a customer who said, yeah, we can put this in a Kanban board. And actually, the scenario was he was collecting client claims for his customers. It was a call center, actually. And he was collecting more than 100 client claims per day. And I said, good luck with the Kanban. Okay, you know what is a Kanban board? Okay. So yes, of course, it's a business process, but it cannot solve process with branching and conditions and things like that. So stating the change of a field or using Kanban is not really business process management. Why? Because first, there is no decisional process. You don't have a human who accept, decline, cancel, escalate, every decision you can take. It's not really business process because there is no routing business rules. You can't say if the amount of this invoice is more than 700, then go to this step, otherwise go to this step. You cannot have a complex routing. And also, you don't have any history and traceability on what happened on the process. It's difficult to say, okay, at this date, this guy took this decision. I'm talking about Kanban and state change. And of course, you don't have any workflow diagram. So same question as for the simple apps and complex apps. Between the very simple business process, which I call fake business process, and BPMN tools, it would be interesting to have something in between. Okay, so now let's talk about associating NoCode and business process tool. So yeah, I go back to what I was saying. Between simple apps and complex apps, there is an interesting zone here where it would be nice to have very simple no-code tools for business users, but able to build more complex applications. And it would be really interesting to have something here which can help you build a process without the BPMN skills. So this is a really interesting zone for your customers and for you also, as no-coders and makers. Okay, how do we solve that? Between simple apps and complex apps, the main difference is very often the complexity of the forms. If you have better forms with a better layout and more features attached to the form, you are up one level to build complex applications. So the first key element is better forms. You need good forms. I have a customer who has 150 fields in a form. It has to be a very nicely presented form with interesting feature in the form. So the first key element is the form. For workflows, if you have a tool which enable you to model a process without BPMN skills, which allow you to trigger some actions automatically, like sending an email, sending an SMS, calling an API, when the state of the workflow is changing. It's really interesting. And it has, of course, to cover the majority of the cases, the 95% I was talking a few minutes ago. It doesn't have to solve all the cases necessary. Otherwise, you have to move to BPMN tools, which are complex. Okay, so now I tell you how we solve this at Pickaform. So it's difficult here in a static demonstration to show you the power of association between NoCode and business process, but I encourage you to go and see a demo on our booth, because we show you how we effectively do that. But we solve this by having a simple form designer integrated into the solution to have more complex forms with interesting layouts, even when you have a lot of fields. We have features that are at form level. A feature can be a business process, but it can also be generating a PDF document automatically, sending an email automatically. We have a simple workflow designer integrated. I will show you some screenshots just after. And on top of this, we have chosen to have a more integrated solution, to not rely on other databases and other systems. So when you address bigger companies, as I said, it's always better to be more integrated, to not rely on other solutions. And of course, for the level of trust, we have public, private cloud, and on-premise. For example, we have a bank as our customers, and they don't want to talk about cloud. They don't want a solution on the cloud. They need absolutely on-premise. And this is an important parameter. You can have no code and on-premise. Okay, so these are the screenshots. Maybe they're a bit small. I don't know if you see clearly, but there are some examples of complex forms with a lot of fields, a lot of sections, a layout which is a bit evolved. And we can do that very easily with Pickaform. I can show you on the demonstration if you go on our booth. We have features at form level, which means we enable only what we need. So the form is always simple. If you have all the features at the same time, you have a lot of things to look at on your form. And with Pickaform, you enable only what you need: commands, emails, workflows. So the UI is the simplest possible for the end user and business users. How do we design a workflow without being a BPMN expert? With Pickaform, it's very, very simple. You will just define all the steps you need in your process. So this is the first step. You define all the steps you need. And once you have done that, at each step, you will define the possible decision at the step. So if you take this decision, it will go to this step. If you take this decision, it will go to this step. And actually, the graph is generated automatically. So you don't have to take care of the graph. So this is the opposite approach as general BPMN solutions, where you start with the graph. Here, we start with the business needs. What are your steps and what decisions you can take at each step? So even for a business user, it's very easy to understand. Once you have a workflow enabled on a form, you will have this kind of header at the top of your form, which says clearly to the user which is the current step. So he knows what is the current step in the flow, what he has to do, so the user knows exactly what he has to do at each step of the process, the current actors at the step, And finally, if you are the decision maker, you will see the decision buttons. So it's just pushing a button. You click on the button and it goes to the next step. Last but not least, the user can see the diagram, and it's free because you didn't design any diagram. And finally, you have a complete history and traceability of the flow. Each time the workflow changes state, you know at this step which decision was taken, you see the date and time, you see who took the decision, and if he left a comment, you see the comment here. So the slide is a bit small here, but it can be a long history. It's cropped here. Okay, so I couldn't do a live demo here because it's only slide, but yeah, I can encourage you to see you on our bots, see us on our bots. The outcomes of this association between NoCode and BPM now with our customers. We addressed 3 kinds of customers. The customers can be no-coders and makers, of course. It can be IT companies, which act as partners. And it can be, of course, the end users, the final customers. So for no-coders and makers, this association between no-code and business process management will help them to reach bigger company, because all bigger companies need a business process. So it's new market opportunities. I have an example in Reunion. Thanks to this association, this year it could address 5 new customers, which are more than 100 users. And for freelancers, it's cool. It's kind of cool. For him, it's more opportunity consulting, more opportunity of consulting, and it was more than 30% growth of his revenue, just because of business process. For IT companies, it's a way to propose business process to their customers faster and cheaper than the competition, which is generally using BPMN tools, which are complex and sometimes expensive to deploy. So here we have an example of a partner, which is in the south of France. They decided to build their own CRM solution with their own business process pipeline for the sales. And now they resell their solution. And so they are like a software publisher, but they actually did not coded any solution. And thanks to the business process, now they can sell their CRM easier. In the past, they were selling bigger CRM, which I won't name here, Sage. And for final customers, having a very simple tool to be able to design the process internally gives them full autonomy, which is generally not the case in that field, in that domain. Usually you need consulting and people who care of your business process and tools and deployment. Now they can be fully autonomous. And I'm talking about business users, not IT department. So the result, our most successful project was with BNP Paribas, where we trained 2 people in the organization service. It's called Business Ownership Department. They are not technical people, and in 9 months, they deployed 9 applications, which is an absolute record in the domain. Usually, it's very long to implement an application in the banking domain. So 9 applications in 9 months with business process, we are very proud of that. And it's really thanks to the association of NoCode and business process for business users. And that's it. So this was my little conference about the association of business process and NoCode. And I hope it will give you ideas for your future customers. Thank you very much. You can have questions. We have time, so... Oh, I have a customer of mine which is here. Do you want to talk? Oh, thank you. René Louis.
Hi.
So René Louis is one of our customers. He's the 3rd biggest Microsoft partner in France. And he was using Microsoft Power Apps to handle his business process. And for some customers, it was a bit heavy. So he decided to go with Pickaform. I leave you.
Thank you. Donc I'm René Louis Ada, president of Upperlink. It's a computing company. So we still use Power Apps platform from Microsoft. But I have a team about 100 people. They are mainly technical experts, and I have about 10 people who are more functional. And sometimes they needed to be autonomous, you know, to address the needs of the customer very fastly. So they asked me to find a product, and they make a study of all the NoCode products. First, there was an Airtable because Bubble was too much complicated. They wanted something more simple. And after they find Pickaform, and they said, "Wow, Pickaform, it's Airtable-like, but there's much more things. The workflow, the security, the way to secure. The other thing is that when you build an app and you build after another apps, the different apps can communicate one with the other. They can share data. And the other things, we work a lot on cybersecurity, and so we had to be sure that the product was very secure. So we make an audit of the code and of the environment, and everything was green. And the thing is,
thanks.
And we are still on surveillance. So the way we work with it's the functional team. When they find some needs they want to address very fastly, then if it's less than 2 days between half a day and 2 days, they just build the apps, okay, and they show the apps to the customer. They don't talk about Pickaform first. And if the user said, "Well, it's good, it's what we want," after we go to see the IT. Because the thing is, as we are very technical, we work with the IT people, and we don't want that people with the functional people build the shadow IT. So in the second way, we go to see the IT and explain why Pickaform, okay? And we explain how Pickaform can be interoperable with their legacy system, okay? And how it's secured. And in that way, we explain to the IT. You know that the IT from the last month they begin to have less and less money budget. So and they have more and more needs to address. So the thing is to say, okay, you have a product, Pickaform, you can develop, and you let the user develop their own need. Okay, but they will not develop anything in the shadow IT. You have the control of what happened, and some was relief because sometimes the user said, "We need this. It's very simple. Just do it," you know. And but they don't explain everything. So they said, "Okay, if it's very simple, you just do it," and they do it. In fact, they do it with Pickaform. So that's why and how we use Pickaform, and how we are. Testing Pickaform for biggest company as Banque de France. The thing is why it's interesting for them because they can't work on any cloud, external cloud. They need to bring all the system in their own environment. Okay, and this is possible with Pickaform, not with other products. So this is why we use.
Thank you very much for all the complimentaries. Thank you. Do you have any question in the room? Thank you, Renali. Yes.
You did not speak about integration. I am independent consultant working with big companies, so all of them have big ERP, Salesforce, and so on. But business processes are not covered. So the idea is to have digitalization of the business process, but connected with ERP and CRM.
Okay. We have API in and out, so you can read and modify everything in Pickaform with API. And when it comes to the workflows, when the workflow is changing step, you can trigger a lot of actions, sending an email, generating a PDF document, for example, or calling any external API if you want. So provided the other tool has an API, we can interconnect. But we need an API in front. Other question? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I work in business process automation, and a lot of automations I build use forms, as for example, Typeform, Paperform, Jotform, and then we use that like a platform like Zapier or in Make to then transfer that data. What would be the use case for a company using your platform versus Zapier and a third-party platform?
Yeah, good question. Because we are not doing workflow automation. Actually, in the past, when we were talking about workflow, we were talking, about business process management. And then the word workflow changed smoothly to workflow automation. So we are not doing workflow automation. We are doing business process with human decision. So a human has to push a button to take a decision to go to the next step. And when the state is changing, then we can trigger something else, like sending an email, sending an SMS, calling an API. But it's always a human process. So it's not workflow automation. Other questions? Yes?
Are there any data analysis capabilities or process? Are you able to do process discovery? Or if you're following the process, it's already pre-built. So if I have a year's worth of data, what does it look like to go back and actually start looking at improvements and places I might want to change my processes?
Okay, we don't have that kind of feature because the data is integrated in Pickaform. So we don't read data which is somewhere else. So we don't do analysis on data which is somewhere else.
So what about data from Pickaform?
Yeah, with API, you can read and do whatever you want. And on the roadmap, we have all the graphs that are coming soon. Other questions? No, thank you very much. Yes, one more.
I didn't understand well at the beginning. It's a SaaS platform, in fact, or you have different options to be self-hosted and so on.
Absolutely. We are hosted on public cloud by default. In some customers, usually bigger customers, they don't want private public cloud, so we can install on private cloud. And for companies like banking, it's hosted on-premise, so they gave us a VM, and we installed the solution on their VM. So they have a complete control on the solution.
Do you have any certification? I mean, when you have to deal with sensitive information like HDDS or things like that?
No. For example, we are not compliant for health, to host health data because it's very difficult to host this kind of data. So we rely on data center specialized for that. We have an example in Reunion. It's called Thesis. They have a data center for medical data, so they host our solution on their VM.
Okay,
but by default, we don't have this kind of certificate.
But you are able to work with people?
Yeah, provided they give us a VM where the environment is certified.
We use on Azure, and Azure certified HDDS.
Okay.
So this is a question of the hosting, not a question of the application.
Other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much for coming here. Thank you very much. And feel free to go on our booth so I can show you a complete demo on how it's working live. It's easier than with slides, static slides. Thank you very much.